Muhammad Faishal Ibrahim.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the members for their support of the bill. SMS Amy Corr has addressed the questions relating to areas under MOT's purviews. This includes questions on PABs. I will now address those under MHA's purviews. Members have raised questions in three areas. First, on MHA's proposals to raise penalties for offences related to illegal speed trials, helmets, individuals who obstruct, prevent, or defeat the cause of justice, and road rage. Second, on MHA's proposals to enhance TP's operational efficiency. And third, on enforcement and other matters. First, let me address members' questions on the raising of penalties. On the vehicle forfeiture regime for illegal speed trials, Mr. Murali Pillay asked about the reason for making the vehicle forfeiture regime for illegal speed trials non-mandatory. I'd like to share with you that the intent of moving towards a non-mandatory regime is to balance deterrence and fairness. While we want to deter persons from taking part in illegal speed trials through vehicle forfeiture, we also have to be fair to owners who did not consent to the offending driver using their vehicle and were not involved in the illegal speed trial. A non-mandatory forfeiture regime does not mean that offenders get off easy. The public prosecutor still retains the power to apply for the forfeiture of a vehicle used in an illegal speed trial. The burden of proof is on the owner to prove, to the satisfaction of the court, that the vehicle was used without his consent. In such situations, we can let the court decide by looking at all the facts of the case. This also ensures parity with forfeiture for other offences in the RTA and in other acts. This House will recall that in 2019, we amended the RTA to provide for non-mandatory forfeiture of vehicles involved in the offence of dangerous and careless driving. As another example, under the Misuse of Drugs Act, MDA, if a person is convicted of any offence and if the public prosecutor makes an application to forfeit a vehicle, the court shall order the vehicle to be forfeited unless the owner establishes that the vehicle was unlawfully in the possession of another person without the owner's consent. Mr. Murali Pillay also asked about the situation where the owner was willfully blind. In other words, the owner suspected that his car could be used in an illegal speed trial, but did not ask. As I mentioned earlier, the burden is on the owner to prove to the satisfaction of the court that the vehicle had been used without his consent. In a case where the owner suspected that the offender used his vehicle and could have asked but did not, it is up to the court to decide, based on the facts of the case, whether there had been implied consent to the use of the vehicle. If the court finds that there was implied consent, the vehicle will be forfeited. Ms. Joan Pereira asked how we would be able to discern genuine cases of owners claiming that they did not provide consent to offending drivers to use their vehicles in illegal speed trials. As part of the investigative process, TP interviews all involved parties separately and procures other relevant evidence, such as video footage. This evidence will be submitted to the court for the court to decide based on the facts of the case and the arguments from both sides. For non-genuine cases, TP will not hesitate to take action against the persons or anyone who falsely claim that the offending driver had used the vehicle without the owner's consent. They may be charged for the offense of providing false or misleading information and face a jail term, a fine, or both if found guilty. Ms. Sylvia Lim asked if TP would step up enforcement to increase detection of illegal speed trials. As I mentioned in my opening speech, TP has stepped up enforcement and expanded its enforcement camera network to improve detection. There are now close to 300 traffic enforcement cameras deployed to detect and deter speeding and red light running. TP will continue to monitor the road safety situation and assess if there is a need to install more enforcement cameras. TP will also continue to conduct regular enforcement operations at known hotspots and will mount additional enforcement operations where necessary. Members also asked about helmet-related offences. Regarding the minimum age for child pillion riders, Mr. Murali Pillay is correct that the minimum age for pillion riders on motorcycles is 10 years old, while the minimum age for pillion riders on PABs is higher at 16 years old. Motorcyclists, unlike PAB riders, go through more stringent training and testing before they are allowed to ride their vehicle. As part of the process to obtain a driving license, motorcyclists will need to take 2 theory tests, go through a series of riding lessons before taking their practical tests. The training includes a module on how to ride safely with a pillion rider. On the other hand, PAB riders only need to go through a theory test and do not need to undergo any practical tests. The motorcyclist has therefore undergone more training and is better able to handle a motorcycle with a pillion rider compared to the PAB rider. We are conscious of the cost of getting helmets certified raised by Mr. Shahril Taha. The Singapore Motorcycle Trade Association has also raised this concern. The current standards used to certify motorcycle helmets was formulated in 2014 in consultation with the industry and technical experts, including the Singapore Motorcycle Trade Association. These are in line with the internationally recognized United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Regulation Number 22, though we have additional requirements. For example, Singapore's previous review concluded that it is important to include additional tests, such as the penetration tests, which test how easily the helmet's shell is penetrated when it hits a sharp object, such as a fence or a motorcycle footrest. That said, we hear the concerns about the cost of certification. We have to balance against the safety of road users. We will work with the relevant stakeholders to find the right balance. Enforcement and penalties are not enough to ensure road safety. TP will also conduct more public education on the importance of wearing proper helmets. As Ms. Joan Pereira pointed out, there are risks in wearing a helmet that does not meet regulatory requirements or is not of the right size. Next, on individuals who obstruct, prevent, or defeat the cause of justice. Ms. Sylvia Lim asked why we are increasing the penalties for the offense of furnishing false particulars to TP, especially since we had only done so recently. To clarify, our proposed amendments to Section 81 are not just increasing the penalties for the existing offense of furnishing false information. We have broadened the offense to cover individuals who, alone or with others, deliberately mislead TP and prevent the identification of the correct offender driver. Thus, we increased the fine by 2 times to reflect the greater seriousness. Mr. Shahril Taha asked what the penalties are for a cyclist exhibiting road rage to a motorist. and whether we can ensure that there are equal consequences for cyclists and motorists. The RTA provides that if a motorist commits an offense, such as voluntary causing hurt while being a driver of a motor vehicle, he is liable for an additional offense of road rage. And the court may make an order to disqualify the offender from driving or holding or obtaining a driving license. This disqualification is on top of the penalties that the motorist may face for the underlying offense. The policy intent of this provision is to prevent motorists who have committed road rage from driving a motor vehicle again, as the behavior might repeat and cause harm to other motorists. The penalty of disqualification is therefore only applicable to motorists. In the scenario painted by the member, where the cyclist verbally abuses and punches a motorist, the court may not disqualify the cyclist from driving. This is reasonable. The cyclist's behavior may not represent his driving behavior, since he was not driving a motor vehicle at the time of the offense. It may not be possible for the judge to assess whether it is undesirable for the cyclist to be allowed to drive a motor vehicle. Nonetheless, the cyclist will still be liable for the relevant underlying penalty. For example, a cyclist who commits an offense of voluntary causing hurt in a road rage type of incident will, similar to a motorist, be liable for a penalty of up to imprisonment of 2 years and fine of $5,000. We propose to amend the RTA to require companies to designate a responsible officer to see to the timely reporting of information needed for TP's investigation of the traffic incident. Mr. Murali Pillay asked about the logic of making the chairperson, managing director, or company secretary of a company responsible for maintaining a proper record of the vehicle's usage. He suggested that we can instead require that the board appoints an employee to be the responsible person. The responsibilities of the chairperson, managing director, or company secretary would then be discharged once the appointment is made. To clarify, this provision does not require the chairperson, managing director, or company secretary to actually carry out the record keeping personally. Instead, they are to ensure the keeping of such records. Ensuring that records are properly kept so that investigations into a traffic incident can be conducted promptly is very important. We want the company to take this seriously and actively take steps toward this end by designating its chairman, managing director, or company secretary, or any position analogous to these officers to be responsible for ensuring that records are properly kept. Mr. Speaker, let me now turn to the questions on enforcement. Mr. Saktiandi Supaat asked if we will be enhancing enforcement efforts to complement the new offences to deter irresponsible driving behaviour. Over the years, TP has enhanced its enforcement strategy by leveraging technology to improve detection of offences. TP has also become more transparent with motorists by alerting them before they reach enforcement camera zones to encourage them to drive more safely. TP will also enforce against motorists who commit the new offences as part of their existing enforcement strategy. Mr. Murali Pillay shared his views that we should hold vehicle owners and operators of vehicles criminally liable for fatal and injury-causing accidents which are due to mechanical failure in the vehicle. I agree that it is important that vehicles are well maintained to ensure that the safety of not just the occupant, but also other road users. This is why for accidents involving mechanical failure, such as when the vehicle's brakes are faulty, TP can already take to task the person who holds the responsibility to maintain the vehicle. That said, we hear the members' suggestion and we will work with MOT to review how we can strengthen this. Mr. Derek Goh asked MHA to consider allowing individuals with financial difficulties to pay road traffic fines in installments. And as mentioned in MHA's Committee of Supply debate in 2021, MHA has been studying this. There are several considerations that MHA will have to think through. I will raise two key considerations. First, whether installment plans would dilute the deterrent effect of the fine. While we empathize with those facing financial difficulties, we also have a duty to ensure the safety of all other road users. Second, resources that could otherwise have been used to directly enhance road safety will have to be diverted to monitor installment plans and manage appeals. These details would have to be worked through. Nevertheless, currently for genuine cases of financial difficulty, if the individual appeals to TP or LTA and the appeal is assessed to be meritorious, TP or LTA already extend their deadline to pay the traffic fine by up to several months. This is probably even more helpful to the offender than an installment plan. Mr. Speaker, road safety is a shared responsibility by all road users. Beyond the amendments to legislations, a wider change on building a good road safety culture is essential. If I may quote Mr. Murali Pillay, he said, "It is clear that legislation must not be the only policy instrument to protect our most vulnerable on the roads. Instead, there must be greater awareness, education, and behavioral change." This is why our efforts have gone beyond enforcement to encouraging a good road safety culture through engagement, education, and infrastructural improvements. As Ms. Joan Pereira highlighted, public engagement and education of our road traffic rules are important. In this regard, TP and LTA have been continuously working with various stakeholders to improve road safety. I would like to thank our stakeholders for their partnership, hard work, and dedication. Sir, I beg to move.
Ms. Joan Pereira.
Thank you, MOS. Thanks, Speaker. I have a clarification for MOS. I would like to know, apart from the enhanced regime for helmet-related offences, what other measures that the Ministry of Home Affairs and Traffic Police plan to undertake to protect all our motorcyclists? Thank you.
Sir, if I may, TP adopts a multi-pronged approach of education, engagement, and enforcement. And we work with our stakeholders, as I shared earlier, to improve road safety for the motorists. So for education, for example, since December 2020, we have a new feature as part of the education process, where we introduce a simulation training, whereby they have to go through a few modules, where they will be able to identify and go through the process of 10 vulnerable accident-prone areas in the simulation. And we also have a riding theory handbook available online for them to learn. So we continuously engage motorcyclists because we know they are a vulnerable group. And we also have positive engagement with them, whereby we reward the rider. Where I was involved last few months, where I went around in a TP car to identify riders who practice safe habits, wearing the necessary gear, ride well, and I think that actually spread among the motorcyclist community, and it gave a very positive vibes to a message to them that they have to, it is good to be on the safe side, to practice good habits for road safety. And we also, as I mentioned earlier, we will continue to enforce where we work with community partners, we work with the feedback that we receive and look at the hotspots where there may be opportunities for us not only to enforce, but to educate, engage, and bring out positive impact to the, not only to the motorcyclist community, but I think for all road users as a whole. Thank you.
Mr. Saktiandi, support.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'd like to seek clarification from SMS Amy, because I didn't get a chance to ask earlier. First of all, I'd like to thank her for highlighting that PAB users taking the test do not have to pay for the second round of tests. But I'd like to ask clarification in regards to the audio version of the test, because I found out for some places like in Australia, in New South Wales, the transport agency, for example, creates a hotline for those taking the road theory tests, for those who has learning difficulties or special needs. So is there a possibility that we can create an audio version of the test, for one? Second, whether we can create a hotline for PAB users that have learning difficulties, for example, those that have trouble reading or understanding questions, for them to make arrangements in that regard. Thanks, SMS.
Thank the member for his question. Just let me say that the free is only in the first 3 months. Second test, repeat free first 3 months when we start. But having said that, as I said, we are mindful and to make sure that it's affordable to the PAB riders. With regards to your suggestion for audio version, first let me say that on a case-by-case basis, if there is a need for special consideration, they can actually do an oral test. But I think your idea of audio version, which means like online but audio, is a good idea. We can look into this. We can study if it's feasible to do. And with regards to hotline, actually, you already contact the LTA and let them know if there are special requests.
Mr. William.
Thank you, sir. For clarification for Minister of State Faishal, earlier he mentioned that nationwide we have about 300 cameras to detect speeding of offences. I do note that it is more than before, but from time to time we also get requests from residents for us to convey to traffic police that they would like speed cameras installed at certain locations. And the reply from traffic police typically is that they would consider the matter, and any decision whether to install or not would depend on the accident rate as well as public feedback. So I'd like him to confirm that traffic police does not need accidents to happen before they decide whether to install a camera at a certain location.
So I thank the member for the question. Not sure whether a member was in the House where I answered a similar question on this, whereby TP does not wait for traffic accident to happen. Essentially, we work with various stakeholders, and if we have feedback that there is a certain hotspots, or even not a hotspot, there are feedback relating to speeding, relating to certain areas, we will go down and take a look. when we go down doesn't mean we will fix the camera. We will do our intelligent work, and then we will also do enforcement ops around the area, making sure that even before we fix, we know that there is a real problem there. If there are other areas that we can do, we will continue other alternatives. And I want to assure the member that we don't wait for traffic accident to happen. And this is something that we all know very well. I've said this in this house, and this is the operational procedure of what we do at TP.
Derek, go.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a clarification question for MOS. He earlier mentioned about statistics where over the last 10 years, traffic fatalities have dropped over 10 years till 2019. However, in that number, in that lower number, about 80% of traffic fatalities relate to the elderly. So the clarification question for MOS is if there are plans and initiatives that have been put in place to address this, given that our population is aging. Thank you.
So we share Mr. Derek's concern about the accidents or the vulnerability of our seniors and the elderly. And in fact, we are going to enhance our penalties against irresponsible motorists in silver zones. Right? And we want to encourage more and greater caution in areas where it's frequented by the elderly pedestrian. So we will be doing something shortly later this year where motorists who commit offences at silver zone, they will incur 2 additional demerit points on top of the usual demerit points. And also they will have liable for an additional $100 in composition fine. In addition to that, we also engage the senior community by working with senior activity centers, Lion Befrienders, and just in February this year, TP launched the eye care kit to work with the seniors on how they are able to walk and travel safely.
Ms. Joan Pereira, do you have another question to ask? No. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Road Traffic Amendment Bill.
Committee stage, what day?
Now, sir, I beg to move that Parliament will immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill.
The question is that Parliament will immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill. As many as of the opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that clauses 1 to 33 stand part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bill to be reported. Minister for Home Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that the bill has been considered in committee and agreed to without amendment.
Third reading, what day?
Now, sir, I beg to move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the bill be now read a third time. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Road Traffic Amendment Bill.